Turkey, Philippines, and Indonesia. Women's tennis breaks the mold. Melbourne, the Australian Open is showing the world that the most popular player can come from the Philippines, and that countries like Indonesia, Thailand, or Turkey can also produce new stars on the tour. There are countries that are tennis countries, and we're not one of them. So I think it's a really good thing because it means there are more players and more surprises. I saw Alex Ela play a few days ago and the crowd was going crazy too, said Turkey's Zeynep Sönmez to reporters. The 23-year-old has become the first Turkish woman in history to reach the third round of the Australian Open. Thanks to her impressive run in Melbourne, where she came through qualifying, she will break into the top 100 of the WTA rankings for the first time. The crowd from a country that has never had a player ranked inside the world's top 50 made its presence felt at the first Grand Slam of the year every time Zeynep Sönmez stepped on court. Her compatriots filled the stands with Turkish flags and constant chants. Meanwhile, Filipino fans caused chaos around Court 6, trying to catch a glimpse of Alexandra Ela in her first-round match. Huge lines, people sitting on the stairs, and large groups watching from the giant screens outside Melbourne Park. Ela hasn't yet won a WTA title, but she's already a star. Fans in her homeland call her the Filipina Princess. The 20-year-old, who honed her game at the Rafa Nadal Academy, is the only professional tennis player representing a nation of over 115 million people. Her popularity is evident both at tournaments and across social media. If you look at the views on her press conferences, you realize she's massive. She has a huge following from the Philippines. It's incredible, and it's something tournaments should pay attention to, said former tennis player Andy Roddick on his Served podcast. The only press conference Ela gave in Melbourne has 58,000 views, the second most watched of the tournament so far, behind only Novak Djokovic's pre-tournament media session. That's more than Roger Federer's, 50,000, and almost twice as many as those of Sinner, Sabalenka, and Alcaraz. Joining the cases of Ela and Sönmez is Janice Chin, 23, who became the first Indonesian woman to win a match at the Australian Open since 1998. This trio of players, all under 24, represents the rise of a new era. Tennis is no longer dominated exclusively by the sport's traditional regions. Nations with less tennis history and infrastructure are now part of the conversation. The Australian Open main draw this year also featured two players from another Southeast Asian nation, Thailand's Mananchaya Sawangkayu and Lanlana Tararudi, aged 23 and 21 respectively. In 2019, Naomi Osaka became the first player from outside the US, Europe, or Australia to reach world number 1, a paradigm shift that, in a tour still led by Sabalenka, Swiatek, and Gauff, seems destined to become the norm. It's only a matter of time before the traditional mold keeps breaking. For decades, the map of women's tennis seemed to glow brightest over a familiar set of nations. Powerhouses with long-established academies, deep funding, and storied champions dominated the conversation. Beyond those borders, other countries watched, admired, and waited. Yet sport has a quiet habit of defying expectation. In Turkey, the Philippines, and Indonesia, three nations with distinct cultures, histories, and challenges, women's tennis has begun to break the mold, reshaping not only who plays the game, but what the game represents. This is not merely a story of rankings and trophies. It is a story of women stepping onto courts that were not always built for them, swinging rackets against tradition, limitation, and doubt, and discovering that the echo of a tennis ball can carry far beyond the baseline. Turkey, between tradition and the baseline. Turkey sits at the crossroads of continents, cultures, and identities. Its cities hum with modern ambition, while deep-rooted traditions continue to shape everyday life. For Turkish women in sport, especially in an individual, globally visible discipline like tennis, this duality has long been a defining tension. Tennis in Turkey was once perceived as an elite pastime, tucked behind club gates and distant from the daily realities of most families. Football reigned supreme, and women's participation in competitive sport often faced quiet resistance rather than loud opposition. Yet change arrived not as a sudden revolution, but as a steady rally. Young Turkish girls began to appear on courts in Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir, rackets oversized, dreams even larger. Their presence alone challenged expectations. Families that once questioned whether tennis was appropriate for girls began to see discipline, confidence, and opportunity in the sport. Coaches, many trained abroad, brought new methods and a belief that Turkish players could compete internationally, not just participate. As Turkish women stepped onto international courts, they carried more than personal ambition. They represented a new narrative, that a woman could be competitive, strong, and visible without surrendering her identity. Each match played under the Turkish flag became a quiet negotiation between modernity and tradition, and, more often than not, a successful one. In Turkey, women's tennis breaks the mold by insisting that athletic excellence and cultural respect are not opposites. They are partners in motion, meeting at the net. The Philippines, playing against the odds. In the Philippines, sport is passion, but tennis has rarely been the national obsession. Basketball courts dot street corners, boxing heroes inspire generations, and volleyball arenas roar with energy. Tennis, by contrast, has lived on the margins, often seen as expensive, exclusive, and impractical in a country where public courts are scarce and weather is unforgiving. For Filipino women, the challenge has been double-edged, breaking into a niche sport while navigating gender expectations that still quietly prioritize sacrifice over self-pursuit. And yet, perhaps because of these obstacles, their journey in tennis carries a distinctive resilience. Filipino tennis players often grow up improvising, training on worn courts, sharing limited resources, and balancing education with sport out of necessity rather than choice. This environment breeds adaptability. Matches are not just contests of skill, but tests of patience and grit. Every point one feels earned twice over. What makes women's tennis in the Philippines truly mold-breaking is its refusal to fit a single image of success. Some players train abroad, absorbing global techniques, while others remain rooted locally, determined to prove that international dreams can grow from home soil. Their stories ripple outward, inspiring younger girls who may never have considered tennis for someone like me. When a Filipino woman walks onto a tennis court, she carries the spirit of a nation accustomed to struggle but rich in perseverance. She plays not to escape her circumstances, but to expand them. Indonesia, grace, strength, and the redefinition of femininity. Indonesia, with its thousands of islands and immense cultural diversity, has long celebrated,